I want to make sure we understand how we transitioned from ecumenism to interfaithism. I brought up the fact that in 94, the New Catholic Catechism was published, which tells us that Muslims are saved. However, also in 1994, some other major developments happened. There's an article called Catholics Evangelicals Affirm Ties That Bind. And in this statement, it recognizes that all are Christians and seeks to end attempts to convert each other. Such eminent people as Pat Robertson, Chuck Colson, and many others bought into this statement that there's no longer a difference between Catholics and evangelicals. Now, this was sort of the capstone of the ecumenical movement, which began at Vatican Council in 1962. On the heels of this, a couple of months later, another document was also published, and it stated that Southern Baptists should embrace Catholics. The Southern Baptist National Convention overwhelmingly endorsed a declaration of unity despite theological differences. Now, the Southern Baptists were known as rather fundamentalist, conservative Christians, and yet here they are saying that Baptists and Catholics should join together because we're all Christians. And so what I'm saying is that was pretty much the bow on the ecumenical package. The Baptists are the largest Protestant denomination. Now they're saying Catholics are saved, Baptists are saved. We have now all come together. So what we see then is suddenly the focus turns from ecumenism, which is now declared a done deal, to interfaithism. Now that's where we headed. The next thing we find is in 1995, there's a call placed from the United Nations, and we've not yet found out who placed that call. We suspect it was Mr. Robert Mueller, who at that time was an official at the UN. He called Bishop William Swing in San Francisco and asked him if he would consider hosting an ecumenical service at his church at Grace Cathedral. Bishop Swing is an Episcopalian bishop. And this call from the UN said, would you be willing to host an ecumenical service of political and religious leaders? 1995 marked the 50th anniversary of the birth of the United Nations, which of course is the structure for one world government. And I'd like to pause to say it is the one world government prophesied in your Bible, over which the Antichrist will soon rule. And so they asked Bishop Swing, will you host this meeting? Well, he did. It was held around the last of June. June 26th of 1945 was when the United Nations birth took place. That's when the Constitution for the UN was signed. Yes. So consequently, they held this celebration somewhere around June the 26th of 1995. It was the 50th birthday. And so all the religious leaders, the political leaders, they were in town to celebrate this huge advance of mankind. That's what they were doing. They were celebrating this tremendous leap forward into a one world governmental system. But there was more happening here than politics, because this call from the UN came to a religious leader saying we need to set something else in motion. It wasn't too long after that that we actually interviewed Bishop William Swing, yes, who began to make moves toward creating a sister organization to the United Nations called the United Religions. And Robert Mueller had said to me in a previous conversation when we had interviewed him, he said, you know, it's a shame that the political leaders of this world can get together every day at the UN, but the religious leaders of the world won't even speak to each other. He said the political leaders of the world now speak with a common voice, the voice of the world community, and yet the religious leaders of the world won't even shake hands together. So this was a conscious initiative and begun in the United Nations to try to form a sister organization called the United Religions.
And you use the word initiative. The document that launched that whole movement was called the United Religions Initiative. There were 3 signers of that initiative: Bishop William Swing, founder and director, Robert Mueller, and a person named Juliet Hollister, who was the director of the Temple of Understanding. Those are the 3 people that launched the United Religions Initiative.
Now, I hope this isn't tedious information to you, because you're going to need to really understand what's going on. It's getting ready to be right in your living room. It's your kids at school are already being affected by this. Your minister is probably already being sucked into this interfaithism. You may already hear him saying, well, Muslims may not worship and believe that Jesus is the Messiah, but they really worship the same God as we do. As soon as you hear that, start shopping for another church. And I may get censored for saying that, but I'm telling you, we are moving into this interfaithism faster than we care to believe. It is coming upon us like gangbusters. So I want you to realize what happened. In 1995, they held this ecumenical meeting to celebrate the birth of the United Nations, the 50th birthday, and also to launch a United Nations of Religions. In 96, Bishop William Swing went on a world tour. He traveled, he visited with Desmond Tutu in South Africa. He met with Mother Teresa. He had a visit with Pope John Paul II. He went to the Archbishop of Canterbury, all of the leading religious figures in the world.
Dalai Lama.
He met with the Dalai Lama, and he came away from those meetings. We returned to America with the feeling that the time had come to launch a United Nations of Religions, a United Religions organization. That's what they decided to call it. They decided to call it the United Religions. They held the first meeting to begin to craft a United Religions charter in 1997. Religious leaders came together to San Francisco to begin to talk about all the elements that would be needed in this United Religions organization. That happened in 1997.
Now, they have meetings in June of every year. Now, you attended, I believe, the meeting that they had in June of '98. You were out in California at the time, and you were invited to attend that meeting.
Yes, I was invited to go there, and I'll tell you frankly, I was absolutely stunned by what I saw. I saw indigenous people who worship the Great White Spirit. I saw Muslims, Buddhists, and I saw the Wiccans there again.
Now, that unto itself is not shocking. These people are obviously in the world, their religions are flourishing, but to see it under the umbrella of an organization that is Christian, and I'm putting that word in big quotes. You had told me that one of the leaders of the United Religions organization put on an indigenous headdress and was dancing around.
We're talking about the indigenous people. We're talking about Native Americans.
Okay, that was it.
And they gave to Charles Gibbs, who is the executive director of the United Religions, they gave him one of their worship pieces, a headdress. And he proudly put it on, and he went walking all around this meeting. And now this guy's supposed to be a Christian, not only a Christian, but a minister.
But that's nature worship. The Native Americans worship nature, and when we had Charles Gibbs on Politics and Religion, he said one of the things that I think probably affected you the most, which was he said that Wiccans are good people and have good...
Let me tell you,
Go ahead,
before you drop the bomb here.
All right.
I said to Charles Gibbs, after I had been to this meeting in 1998, it was held at Stanford University in California. I said, Reverend Gibbs, I noticed the Wiccans were there. Now, the word Wiccan means witch. Look what the Bible has to say about witches. Saul destroyed the witches. And then when he backslid, he went to a witch to try to hear from God when he couldn't hear from God any other way. Maybe that's the reason they have the witches there. I don't know. But nevertheless, I said, Reverend Gibbs, how do you justify as a Christian minister fellowshipping with witches? And what he said blew me away, and that's what you were getting ready to say. He said, well, I can't answer all those theological questions. All I can tell you is I've had many good times with these people, and they have good fruits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are we saying here, Eddie? I mean, let's face it. What's happening here? We are seeing the total fleshing, the total compromise. When you can, knowing the Bible is adamantly against witchcraft of every form, and you can get to the point where you've done so many compromises that it just don't matter anymore, that you can sit down with the witch and say, well, they're nice people. There's something incredible going on here, and that, in fact, is what is happening right now, and it's permeating our world. Go to a major bookstore, you'll see a huge New Age section. Turn on National Public Radio News, you're going to hear New Age music. I mean, it's rampant. It's going everywhere right now.